Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I appreciate everyone's attendance. There's a couple more people that said they were coming, but that's all right. So I'm Lieutenant Jeff Pinard. I've been with the Goffstown Police Department full-time since 2007. I've been a firearms instructor for the Goffstown Police Department since 2012. So there's been some outreach about firearm safety and storage, how to store firearms correctly, and we're going to go over some firearm safety and how to properly store it. I can't just do a firearm safety or a firearm storage class because you need to know how to be safe with firearms before we can actually store them safely. So we're going to kind of go through a bunch of safety things and kind of talk about a little bit about some statistics. So 31% of all households in the US have firearms, and 22% of American adults personally own one or more firearms. Here in New Hampshire statistics, 41.1% of adults have guns in their homes. What does everybody think about that? Does that seem about right? Do we think it's a little low, a little high?
Do you know what it is in New Hampshire?
That's what I'm getting from CBS from 2017, yeah. My guess is probably a little bit higher than that now. But I don't, that's the most recent statistic I could find for New Hampshire. One of the reasons why we want to talk about safe storage is who has access to these firearms and why do we need to store them safely? Nearly 40% of child gun deaths are related to suicide. And over 80% of the children under the age of 18 who have died by suicide used a gun belonging to a parent or relative. So these are some big statistics that are going to drive home the need for the safe storage piece as we move through this presentation. So when we talk about safe gun handling, you have your 3 core firearm safety rules. Treat every firearm as if it was loaded. You don't know the condition of a firearm and you see it laying around somewhere, we're going to treat it as loaded. We don't know whether it is or isn't loaded. So we're going to treat it as if it was. Most or a fair amount of unintentional discharges that happen, and I'm going to use that language, an unintentional discharge instead of an accidental discharge, because it's not an accident. It's unintentionally, it wasn't intended to do it, but there were inputs done to cause the firearm to discharge. So that unintentional discharge is, a lot of people are going to say, well, I didn't know it was loaded, or I didn't realize it was loaded. So we're going to treat them all as if they were loaded. You always want to keep your firearms pointed in a safe direction. What is a safe direction? Well, it also depends on where you are. A safe direction could be at the floor, it could be at the ceiling, it could be at a specific wall. I know there's, well, the cleaning lady's in the building, but other than that, it's just us. So we'll determine what the safe direction is. There's going to be a component where I'm going to show you some firearms. We're going to talk about what the safe direction is going to be for us in the classroom. And we're going to keep the firearms pointed in that safe direction. And then keeping your finger off the trigger. So the trigger is the main firing mechanism for a firearm, and we're going to keep our finger off the trigger until we're ready to discharge at a target. Does anybody have any questions about those? Yes?
I know that we're treating all of them as though they are loaded, but are all the ones that are here not loaded?
All of the display firearms in the back of the room are unloaded. The only loaded firearm is in my holster that will stay there for the entirety of the class. So everything else is not loaded, and when we go to the handling portion, I'm going to make sure that nobody has any ammunition. Nobody brought any ammunition with them? No? Okay, good, perfect. So there's no ammunition for those firearms in the room, so that's one of the ways we're going to make this environment safe today. So you have firearms that are going to be classified into different classifications. Pistols are designed to fire a projectile from one or more barrels from one hand or from a two-handed grip, but it's basically from a handheld grip, whether that's one or two hands. Your multiple projectiles are from older school muskets were designed to fire multiple, they had multiple barrels. So you don't see that in modern pistols at this point. Your rifles are designed to fire from a shoulder level. So we're shouldering the firearm. So you're going to put the buttstock of the rifle up against your shoulder and take aim before you fire. And they have spiral grooves that run down the length of the barrel that add a spin to the bullet, basically like a football does. That's a spiraled football that's thrown. It gives it more stability in flight, and it makes it more accurate on target. And then your shotgun is a smoothbore has a smoothbore barrel, and it's firing small shot at short ranges. Shotguns are usually going to give you multiple projectiles with that one round fired. So depending on the size of shot, anywhere from the buckshot, which is bigger, it's like a ball bearing size, all the way down to small little pellets for different hunting environments. So now we have some understanding about the firearms. Anybody have any questions about those three main types of firearms? So now we have to break into the different actions. And some of these actions are going to move across multiple firearm types. And they all operate somewhat similarly, but they're a little bit different. So your semi-automatic, you're going to see those in pistols, you're going to see those in rifles, and you're going to see those in shotguns. Basically, for a semi-automatic rifle, every time the trigger is pressed, one round is fired. And the rifle does the loading itself, or the pistol will do the loading itself. Yes?
Is a round one bullet?
One bullet.
Okay. What's the difference between an automatic and a semi-automatic?
So an automatic would be, as long as you hold the trigger down, it'll fire. It'll continually fire until you release the trigger.
And a semi-automatic does not.
A semi-automatic does not do that. And a fully automatic rifle is purchased with a special exemption, basically. The special permits, and most people are not going to be able to purchase a fully automatic rifle. So your revolver is mostly found in pistols, and it has a cylinder which the rounds are loaded into. And when you pull the trigger, the cylinder turns and a hammer strikes the primer, which discharges that round. So again, it's one time, for every time you pull the trigger, you're turning a cylinder and you're discharging a round. A bolt action, primarily found in rifles, but also older style shotguns. There's a mechanical bolt on the gun that loads and ejects the round or the cartridge casing out of the chamber before and after each time it's fired. So you pull the trigger, you have to operate the bolt to eject the spent shell casing, load another round, close the bolt, and then you can fire. A pump action shotgun works, or a rifle works similar to a bolt action. Instead of the bolt usually has a 90-degree throw in it. You have to kind of come up before you can come back. The pump action comes straight back and straight forward. But you're doing the same thing. You're ejecting a spent casing and loading a fully completed round into the gun between trigger presses, between fires. And then obviously a single shot is just that. You're manually putting in the round into the gun, you're taking it out for those single shots. And that's how they're going to work. Any questions on how those work? And we're going to kind of see some of this stuff, and I can demonstrate it a little bit easier. Those are some examples. There's a pistol, a semi-automatic pistol, a semi-automatic shotgun, and a semi-automatic rifle. A few examples of a revolver. The first two from the left side and the center are double action, single action revolvers, and one on the far right is a single action only, which in the description that I gave you, you have to manually cock the hammer, that metal piece sticking off the back of the firearm there is considered the hammer. You have to manually cock that back to get the cylinder to turn. So that makes the difference there. Those are your Western style revolvers. That's where you used to see those. Bolt action rifles. The main category for your bolt action rifle is going to be your hunting rifles. A lot of deer rifles and other large game rifles are going to use a bolt action rifle. Old military rifles. some pump action shotguns. So the wooden fore end on that shotgun is how you operate the pump. That moves backwards and forwards, and that operates the action to unload and load projectiles. And then you have single shot rifles and shotguns. So what do we think the purpose of safe storage is? I'm going to ask questions to the group because I've talked too much already.
Prevent injury.
Prevent injury, that's a great one. Anybody else?
Prevent theft.
Theft. We can broaden that up a little bit with access. We're trying to prevent access and prevent theft. Although those are all things. Injuries, theft, that we're trying to look at to curtail with storage. Storage is also a conversation about purpose. What's the purpose of the gun you're storing? Does it have a home defense purpose for you as the owner of that firearm? Is that why you have it? Well, we're going to store that a little bit differently than we're going to store something that is for hunting or for target shooting, etc. Those are kind of different. We're in different ball fields there. Storage is all about also for that delayed access piece. How you store it is, I have different storage methods here. How I store it is going to dictate how long it takes someone to get access to that. There's different ways. So we're going to talk about those. There's a couple different examples. You have a biometric fingerprint scanner on that safe at the top. That is those other two are trigger locks. So basically they're locking around the trigger and preventing the trigger mechanism from being operated. The advantages, disadvantages to the trigger lock is you can still cycle or operate the pistol, in this case, or the action on some rifles, etc. So you can still maneuver the gun. You can still do things with the firearm with it while it's in a locked state. The safe, obviously, it's in there, it's enclosed, and it's not accessible. Your long-term storage. So when we go back to, this is kind of our home defense storage. Most people are going to store for home defense are going to want to keep their firearm loaded. You can keep it in a couple different states of readiness. You can keep it loaded, fully loaded with a round in the chamber and a full magazine. You can keep it loaded with a fully loaded magazine but nothing in the chamber. Or you can keep a magazine in the safe with the firearm unloaded and put it together to make it ready. It all depends on the person's, the comfort level. How do you feel? What do you feel is going to be the safest for your situation? And that's kind of important. There's no right or wrong way. It's what's going to work for you in that situation. Because there's pros and cons to all of them. Long-term storage. So long-term storage, we should be unloading them. And I say that just so that we're not, you're fully aware that, again, we're going to treat everything as loaded, but you're fully aware that you've put it away, that you know that it's not loaded anymore. It's a safer situation when you're talking about long-term storage. Obviously, we can do long-term storage with something like a cable lock. And the problem with one of the disadvantages to the cable lock is that it's mobile. So if you don't lock it to something, it's mobile. The gun's locked, it can't be used, but now somebody can walk away with it. So we have to consider those factors of that type of storage solution. And then you have a safe. Obviously, safe is the same thing. It's a storage solution. Is it impenetrable? It's not. They're defeatable. Depending on the type of safe, it just slows you down on how long it takes you to get access to those weapons. And then we talk about ammo storage, when you talk about long-term storage, storing ammunition in a separate location or not right next to firearms. If it's in a safe, it's one thing. It's just a good idea to separate them because again, we're talking about if our goal is to make sure that people are safe, that kids aren't having access to it, keeping the ammo separate from the guns kind of prevents that. It separates it. They have to go find ammunition now. New Hampshire has an RSA 650-C:1 for negligent storage of firearms. You guys can read that over. Basically, it's putting the onus on the firearms owner to make sure that they're storing firearms safely.
Is there more? Or
Nope, that's
the
it.
maximum penalty $1,000
Maximum penalty is $1,000 per instance.
per weapon? Or
Per instance. So part of some of the research that I've been looking at and some of the things that is talking about firearms, and I think depending on where you are and what circles you're in, some people have there's a we don't want to talk about firearms, we don't want to talk about it. I don't know why that is, but kids are going to different houses or visiting friends and having conversations with parents. So having the idea of what you're going to say, hey, hi, I'm Kevin's mom. I just want to let you know that we have firearms. You're kind of taking the edge off. Hey, I have it, and I have them secured. Do you have any? And if you do, are they secured? It opens up the conversation. Yes.
I was just thinking that it would probably, like, it has to be normalized to have those conversations. And it would probably be easier to normalize it coming from somebody who does have firearms to be able to open up the conversation and say, hi, I know your kid is coming over tonight. I just want to let you know we have firearms and they're secured. Rather than, like, I feel a little bit more nervous about calling somebody and being like, hey, Julie is sleeping over tonight. Do you have any firearms? Mm-hmm. So, like, for people who own firearms, that would be a good place to start with normalizing the conversation.
I agree, and I think that's important for those conversations to start, because you're putting them on the defense. Yeah. We have this, I have this, and this is what we're doing to protect the kids if they're coming over here, and I think that's important because I think that's where that putting people on the defense kind of, well, do you have any? Whoa, that's why are you asking me? And it's not you do you. I want to make sure that the kids are safe, that my kids are safe, and that everyone's safe in those situations. And part of the conversation is talking to kids about firearms and making sure that they understand the safety stuff about firearms and how to interact with them if they find them, if they're at a friend's house, if the friends are getting firearms out. What do you do? Well, you need to find an adult, and you need to probably leave that situation. Remove yourself from that situation because it's not a safe situation to be in without adult supervision. Those are huge things for the conversations to happen, because I think that's a big piece that we're missing, is having the conversations outside of the family unit about firearms and firearms in our own homes for whatever reason. Does anybody have any questions about the PowerPoint materials?
Yeah, I have 2 or 3.
Sure.
So speaking about the RSA, right? The law about that. So let's say you have your firearms in a safe, locked away, right? But your kid knows the code somehow gets in the safe, even though it was locked previously. Is that still?
If it's locked and they have access, it's going to be one of those where there's going to be some investigation. There's going to be some conversation about how they got access. Do they have the code? Well, if they have the code, they're not really stored I want to say not stored properly, but it doesn't prohibit access for them. Sure. If they figured out the code, that's a different issue. You're taking steps to secure those firearms.
Okay, all right. And the second one was just about ammo storage. So let's say in the case of a pistol, and probably not even related to this, just you might know in general, right? So let's say you have a magazine by itself. The magazine is loaded, right? Does that damage like the spring mechanism over time, or can you leave it loaded like indefinitely?
You can leave it. I mean, over time, is it going to weaken the spring? Sure, it will. It's a spring under compression, but you're talking long periods of time. Okay. You're talking years of a loaded condition for it to cause significant damage.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
And a lot of times for springs, it's the compressing, decompressing that wears it down a lot more.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, you guys want to come around the table and actually stand up and look around? Let's start with. Come on, everybody come around the table. Don't be shy, I won't bite anybody. Come right around. So just a couple different examples of safes and how to store. I've got this one. This is a travel safe, actually. It can go in a car. This is designed to go around this seat components, and then that piece locks in here. You can store your firearm in there, and you can lock it, and now it's locked into the vehicle, and it's safe. Obviously, the biggest problem with the key is if you need to use it and you need to get access to your firearm, you know, it's a little cumbersome to get access to it. This is a, you know, it's not super light gauge, but it's not super heavy duty material. So again, we're preventing access for a period of time. How long? Probably not that long if it's someone that knows what they're doing and wants to gain access to whatever's in here. These are great. The biometric safes, fingerprint and a code with a key. So you have multiple different options for limiting access and then gaining access to it when you need to, and they're quick. So your home defense situation where you need it, it's spring loaded, the cover pops open, and you can have access to your firearms relatively quickly. Again, we're talking not super thin metal, but it is what it is. It's designed to give you quick access to your firearms. I highly recommend that they be mounted to something because, I mean, I've got a nice little carry box. Take out whatever's in it out of the house.
How do the trigger locks unlock? Like, are those biometric?
You can get them. Trigger locks you can get biometric.
Is that not the norm?
No, they're more. I mean, they're more expensive.
What's the norm?
For a trigger lock
Yeah.
would be just a combination lock. It's a 3-digit combination is the normal. I would say that for home defense, most people are going this route is what you're seeing. Trigger locks are not very common because they give you access to the firearm.
Yeah, I just, like, as a parent, I wouldn't want that.
No.
My
Is it-
10-year-old could figure out a 3-digit code real quick.
Yeah, definitely. So then you have your cable locks, which everybody can take one with them if they like. I've got plenty. They are just that. They're cable. They're a little padlock with a key, and they lock the firearm up or won't let you utilize it. Obviously, it's still portable. How do we combat that with something like this?
Hook it onto something else.
Exactly. So you get a closet with a closet rod that's mounted, not one that comes off, that you can slide everything off, but a closet rod or a closet-made shelving, hook it through. Again, we're slowing down access. That's the point behind it. So with actions, this would be a pump action shotgun, and there's an action lever on here, and this is basically what you're doing is you're pumping this way to load and unload the shotgun. With a revolver, as you can see, this would be your cylinder here, which you'd load your rounds, your completed rounds into this, and then you would close it. And as you pull the trigger back, it cocks the cylinder, or rotates the cylinder, cocks the hammer, and would fire.
What
So
are people using those for?
target shooting. So this would be a 22 caliber one. This is a target revolver. And for this one, to secure it with a cable lock, you would put the cable lock through the cylinder and lock it.
Some guns come with the lock
Yep.
already.
Everything pretty much comes, if you're purchasing them new, they pretty much come with a cable lock.
But if you needed one, was there some place in town where you could get them?
The police department. We probably have 1,000 or probably 3,000. I think I looked at the boxes. I 20 out of a box, and it was a box of 1,000. So And I can get more. We can get them for free, so it's nice to have. All right, this comes out for the shotgun. It's a little bit more tricky because without getting into the specifics, and if anybody were to have a question about how to specifically store something or secure something, I'd be happy to answer it at any time, because there's so many different things out there that different actions and different manufacturers do things differently on how to do it. So we can help you. I could help somebody work through it. But basically, you'd have to push the loading gate up a little bit to get the cable lock through. But now I've cable locked this as well. And I can unlock this. So this would be the example of a bolt action rifle. Basically, you're flipping the bolt and operating a bolt like that. Same idea. This is a 22 caliber, which is a target rifle, and you're going to go through the action. Same thing. It's now locked. This would not. Well, it could work depending on how. This is a magazine-fed bolt action rifle. Some of them are integral magazines. So if you can't get from the chamber out, then you can't use cable lock. So you'd have to use some other locking mechanism for that specific rifle. You could use a trigger lock, a safe, something else. You'd have to go with another variant just because of the way that the rifle operates and loads.
Can you remove a piece of the gun to...
Potentially, some of them you can. Some of them you can open. You can open them, the magazine, and it'll just kind of have a spring hanging off. But you can do it. Some of them you can't. Some of them are just a closed. There's no floor plate for it to come out. So you have to come up with some other solution. And then a semi-automatic rifle is the same idea. You're just going to run through the open chamber and lock it. And then for your semi-automatic pistol, the same idea as the rifle. You're going right through. And there are there's a ton of different things for like the AR-15 style rifles. There's a lock I believe you can put in the chamber that has a key, so you can lock out the chamber, which would be similar to this. Instead of putting something through, it just goes in and locks. So there's a bunch of different products out there for securing firearms. Biggest thing is to look at what's going to help you, what's going to achieve what you're trying to do, how you're trying to secure it, what the purpose is, and how much access you're trying to limit.
And is that a trigger lock on that, or is that just a holster? Trigger holster?
Oh, that's a trigger holster. That's a trigger holster.
How much does like this cost?
$80. I just looked at it the other day. So, I mean, you're talking, these are free. You can go up to 80, and then you can go into thousands of dollars for a safe. It's all in what your budget will allow and still being able to accomplish your goal. I mean, this case right here could be, I can put a padlock on it. I can put 2 padlocks on it, and now it's locked. So it's a rugged plastic case. It's preventing access. So you could use, they make bike cables like this. So you could take a bike cable, you could lock this safe up and then lock it again, closet rod, something in the basement, around a 2x, like a support for stairs or something in the basement, and now you've got a case that's locked. So anything's possible. We're just going through a process of trying to limit access. Any other questions? No. Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone's attention and your questions tonight. It was great.